Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Book Club Review. And we'll be looking at the topic, how to turn diversity into a major asset for our organization. And it's based on the book written by Bamboo HR Pay Scale. To review this book, I'm excited as always to have with us Ezine Obiora, who is the Chief Human Resource Operations Officer for FIMOV. And gentlemen, let's welcome Ezine Obiora. She'll be reviewing the book titled How to Turn Diversity into a Major Asset for Your Organization. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Doc. Good evening. Good evening to those online and offline who will eventually watch this. I'm happy to be reviewing the last book of the year. So I thought I just thought about it now. I said, this is the last book of the year. So yes, I'm happy to be reviewing it. I remember when I read it, I got to the end and I was like, because I was like, okay, let me start reading. And then before you know it, I was already at the end. I was like, this was such a short read. And, I think, or I felt that this was an opportunity for people to take advantage of, because such an easy read, this review is not going to be so long because such an easy read, such an easy breezy read. And I just want to use this as, how do I put it, a platform to encourage people, this review or these reviews that we do, the learning grounds, right? I've had conversations, one-on-one conversations with some people and say, oh, I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to, do public speaking. This is the opportunity for you to do it. I used to be in I used to be a member of a group called Toastmasters. Doc knows it. It's instrumental to my speaking, giving me that confidence to speak, right? And one beautiful thing about Toastmasters is that you get to practice, as much as you can with no judgments, no judgment zone. And so along the lines of that, I see this also as another such platform. Okay, maybe in this one there might not be, I mean, you can still have the evaluation on, but like in Toastmasters, you have that what do you call it, structured evaluation. But this is just an opportunity. It's an easy breezy read. You can read this book in an hour or even less, and then you come and just give your review. The thing about it is that for those that have facilitated, they know that I am always there. I'll always be there to be your hype person, to help you, to hold your hand along the way. Doctor is there. So this is an ideal practice and learning ground for you to build your speaking career. I happen to be at some point I think it was on Threads or so, I happened to find this set of women. I think it was just a recurrent pattern. Maybe it was an algorithm that was bringing it to me, but I just saw women that are speaking, they have speaking gigs, speaking engagements. I'm talking about paid speaking engagements. I'm not talking about small paid, and I'm not talking about just within our locality. I'm talking about global, right? And so people are making money from this. People are sharing gems. They're networking with this skill, this skill just to speak. It might seem minute, but it's something that can take you far. There are opportunities that have come to me this year, right? And they've come to me by virtue of certain things that I've learned or certain skills I learned either randomly or intentionally along the way, right? And so when I'm asked to send my profile and I put it together, I'm like, I actually have experience in this thing. By the time I put things together, right? I put all my skills together. I'm like, wow, I did this at some point in my career. I did this at some point in my career. So everything pieces together. So don't take it for granted that you have a learning platform, an opportunity or a platform for you to harness your skill in speaking. I don't believe that there's anybody that's incapable of anything. If you put your mind to it and you continue to polish and practice and practice, say practice makes perfect, you eventually get to a point where you're polished. Some great speakers of today, they used to be so terrible at speaking. And even those who you think that are great at speaking today, you may not know what goes on behind the scenes, right? Some of them still have to do things to practice to make themselves good. Some of us, we keep on looking for opportunities to practice. Doctor and I, we talk about it. Just give me a topic. I will research it and I'll come and speak. Because I'm happy to harness my skill. I want to polish myself up to the point where, I can speak on certain different kinds of things, at a go. I look at people that speak at TEDx and all that, global. I'm like, wow. So, this is an opportunity. Please, this is just me imploring you, everyone, whoever is listening, to use this as an opportunity, an ample opportunity for you to harness that skill, because you just never know where you might need this skill. Anyway, this was me digressing. It's somehow related, but I just thought to drop it in here before we get into the book itself. Like I said, this book is an easy read. A book that was put together by Bamboo and PayScale. And they're really talking about, how to maximize diversity as an asset to your organization. Please feel free to drop in comments and, chime in if you would like. Maybe at the end, if we have the time, we can, talk about how we see diversity, or diversity has impacted us in our places, our workplaces. But yeah, the book said, when you hear diversity, for some people, they're just a particular thing or certain things that come to your mind. Yeah. I remember when there was a lot of hoopla about DEI. Remember, I think it was right after this. I can't seem to remember this slogan, that came up where people were talking about horrible bosses and all that. It was like a movement. I think it was the Me Too movement, right? So right after that, we had the DEI. You would go online, you would go everywhere, you would see roles, DEI consultant, DEI executive. It was everywhere. They were looking for those people that would enforce DEI. So it was a kind of a cross your T and dot your I thing, right? And then all of a sudden, I think it was from 2 years ago or so, thereabouts, it started to fizzle out. In fact, some of those high profile jobs, DEI jobs, they were axed. Then so it showed you that a lot of these organizations were just doing these things to tick the boxes. They were not necessarily entrenching the diversity thing into the company. But this booklet or book, whatever it is, I like to call it a booklet, a book. It's trying to make us look at diversity from different perspectives. So like I said earlier, diversity, when you say diversity, right, or when you think of diversity, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I'm sure for some people, what they think about is, gender diversity. You just think of, just black and white. It's race, it's gender. But then the book is saying it's a whole lot more than that. And the writers of this book said, they want you to move away from seeing things from just a pointed, from just a limited point of view. They want you to open up your mind to see diversity from a wider point of view, because diversity does go beyond those two boxes. So it's not just about gender and race. There's a whole lot more that goes into diversity. Now, what is the essence of diversity? Diversity is there to serve as checks and balances, a check and a balance in the organization, right? And we're going to go into that, a little bit down the line. But I remember there was a book we reviewed. I think it was last year. I can't remember exactly what book, but I remember that the writer talked about, having a homogeneous team, talked against having a homogeneous team. How you just have everybody that just agrees, whatever you say, everybody's speaking the same language. We're not saying that, yes, there's a thin line between everybody agreeing on something, but then there's also the thing about herd mentality, where people cannot challenge, what is being said. Yeah, whatever the head says, yes, we agree, whether we believe in it, whether our heart is in it, we just believe. So diversity brings creativity, brings innovation, right? It allows for those things because there's no herd mentality. Everybody's not moving along the same line like a zombie. There's richness of difference in perspectives, opinions, thoughts, different things. And that's what diversity brings. It brings, of course, when there's more innovation in an organization, what do you think? There's more innovation, there's more productivity. It of course contributes to the bottom line, which is what the organization is in business for anyway. And that, of course, that brings increased revenue And yeah, increased revenue, of course, leads to higher profits, which is what, the organization wants. So how do you, because at the end of the day, the organizations will tell you they're in business to make money, right? So how do you put diversity to use as a tool, right? As an asset for your organization? Now, the book said diversity brings about challenges. There are challenges that come with diversity. Come on. You're from this, even siblings from it's the same family, right? Your brother and sister, or brother and brother, or sister and sister, you would have, differing opinions, and there might be challenges even amongst yourselves, right? But then as much as it brings challenges, right? And it listed in, a couple of challenges. It could bring legal challenges, it could open up the company to things like that, legal challenges, getting different people to work together. So now it's the opposite of herd mentality. You don't have people that, people that come from different areas or spheres of life. They have their different opinions. They're from different races, probably from different religions, and you need to manage them to get to work together to one objective. That's the challenge. There's also the challenge of ensuring adequate group representation. So you're in an organization, and you want to make sure that there's fairness across board, right? You come into a team, and this team is heavily what do you call it? Heavily of this particular. I remember when I would what do you call it? Read up about African American American companies, and then you see some African Americans who say that they are marginalized. They're not enough African American engineers, and not enough. They talk about percentages, So talking about the representation, even here with us in Nigeria, maybe you get into a workplace and there's not enough females. I'll give you an example. You look at a board, and the board is just made up, if it's heavily male, there's not enough female representation, right? Maybe you see one female and it's a token representation, or you don't even see any female at all. Or you go into an engineering team and you're just seeing, in fact, there's some engineering teams. I've worked in an engineering organization, so I know what I'm saying. You would see maybe a team and it's just male. You're like, male, you're like, what's going on? And I remember those days because I was in charge of the assessment center, bringing in trainees and all that. One of the things we took into consideration was bringing in more females, right? There was some, should I say quota or something like that, that was dedicated towards bringing in females. That's not to say that we were not looking at merits, because the truth of the matter is that the female engineers were very sharp, very intelligent, but there was what's the word? There was an allowance for them, so that we could have balanced teams. So those are the things, those are the challenges that diversity raises, right? But beyond these challenges, right? If we choose to see things only from challenges, then we are at a disadvantage. Beyond these challenges, there are opportunities. Diversity brings a lot of opportunities. So the book is trying to get us to see things from the lens of the opportunities that diversity brings, right? Now, part of the challenges that diversity brings up, one of the things the book talked about was bias, right? We probably have heard this word bias and all that. And it says that bias is a normal thing. I think I've had this conversation with people, and I've also talked, I've done posts, I've had conversations, we've had conversations around unconscious bias. You might think you don't have a bias. Some people tend to think that I don't have a bias. I'm very liberal. Yeah, I'm liberal. I'm accepting of everyone, but it's a lie. The truth of the matter is that whether you like it or not, you have a bias. In fact, I put it, in my review, I said there's a 99% chance that you are likely to have a bias. It's probably in most of us. It's very likely in most of us. And so when you have a bias and you're probably not even aware of that bias that you have, then it's an unconscious bias, right? There's an unconscious thing of you that just knocks in. You tilt more, or you're inclined more to people that are like you. So like I walk into a place and I might drift more to like the females, or I might drift more. It might be like, okay, I'm a tall girl, so I drift more to those that are tall because they're like me. So I want to identify with the tall people. It's unconscious. I may not be aware that is that, but I am unconsciously attracted or drifted to people that are tall. Or I get into a space or whatever, and then it's a group of, diverse people from different countries and all that. And then I see Nigerians and I drift to them because I hear people saying, oh boy, how far now? How far? And then you see me just drift to them because they're speaking the language that, that is appealing, that I can relate to. That's the word. So when you hear people say, I can relate, that's, in a way, it's a bias, it's an unconscious bias. And the book said, now take notes, a bias is not necessarily negative. So you might have you could have a bias against, but then you can have a bias for, and the bias for is what I just said now. So even when I'm hiring, I think I'm trying to remember I think it's a hiring bias, right? I'm trying to remember the exact term, but somebody said it, this person said, we should also be careful of those kind of biases, even during processes like hiring. I might be interviewing with someone, right? And the person it might even be something as basic as a scent. Somebody has a scent and I can relate to that scent. That scent gives me a good memory. I'm drawn to that person, right? Or the person may have a scent that gives me bad memories. Then I now, whatever the person is saying is not, I'm getting angry, I'm getting irritated. And unlike the halo, there's a halo, where you have the halo effect where you just like somebody, which is the bias. You see someone that walks in, like, for example, I'm in an interview panel and a tall person walks in. I'm like, this person is tall. And so whatever the person says, even if I'm just saying, I'm not saying that this is me, I'm just giving an instance. Whatever the person is saying, whether the person is, even if the person makes mistakes, it's just like, this is my ideal candidate. There's nothing you want to tell me. So these are the things, these are the challenges, these are the biases that, the challenges of diversity that the writer brought up. And it's amusing to see them, to hear them or see them written down. But when you think about it, these are things that actually happen in real life. So says we should note that biases are universal. I'm going to give an example. A white man, in a workplace, he has a bias for his fellow white man or his fellow white woman. Because those are the people that he can relate with. They have what you call the inside jokes. This one will get me and get what I'm saying, unlike the other person from a different nationality or from a different race, right? So it cuts across. Wherever you find yourself in the world, there will always be biases will come up. They just come up in different forms, different sizes, different shapes, whatever it is, but they exist. So, but the writer is saying that, it's not an issue to have a bias. That's what the writer said. However, it becomes an issue when you bring it into the workplace. Now, and that's why I gave an example. How would it be that we are there's an interview panel, or the interview panels, we're looking to bring in people based on merit, and then you have a panel, maybe majorly filled with people that have biases. All they're concerned about is that, you know what, we want to bring in our own people. So anybody that looks like us or talks like us, those are the people we want to bring in. Anybody that doesn't sound like us, who doesn't, I say whether the person is speaking eloquently or knows what they're talking about, we're not going to bring that person in. So that's an example. You don't want to, as much as you have those biases, we don't want them in the workplace, because when they come into the workplace, they now present an issue. And then it brings about things like segregation, discrimination, and all that, right? So it says there needs to be intentionality in dealing with biases, and of course, further down the line, diversity. Diversity is so important in the workplace because they lead to process improvements. We talked about innovation, where there's a difference of opinions, there's a difference of perspectives. You see things from a different lens, you see things from a different light. You're able to fine tune your ideas, and there's creativity in it, and it makes your ideas and results better. Now, it says stats show that the global workforce is diversifying. Need I tell you more, right? Look, even with the Japa wave that is happening in Nigeria, just Nigeria alone, you see people that are moving to different parts of the world, right? And there you see them on social media, they're at work. Do you see someone who is this in this place, in this organization? it's rapid. The rate at which it's happening is crazy rapid. It said that by 2060, it is projected that nearly 1 in 5 of every 5 of people of the United States total population will be foreign born. I don't know if anybody saw this meme. There was one time there was is it a meme or, it was like a picture that was brought up on social media that there was a team that was supposed to play for a country. I can't remember, it was Canada or so. Pretty much everybody in that place was not an original Canadian, right? There were Nigerian Canadians, there's Indian Canadians, and it has already started, and that's how it's going to be. By the time we're joking about it, and we're saying that by the time you're looking at, sports teams down the line, in a couple of years, you will not see the original, the supposed original people of the country. What you will see is the mixture. And the thing about our people, I mean, I speak for our people, even other nationalities, once they go, they don't have any issues with mixing up, right? You will see people, mixing up with all kinds of people. I'll give my own tribe an example, the Igbos. They say we have you will see a Tibetan Igbo person. So the person's dad is Igbo, but the mom is, from Tibet or from Mongolia. And you're like, what in the world were you looking for to go all the way there? But that's how rapid the world is diversifying. Now, when you see all that, is the workforce or is the workplace ready for this diversity? For this diversity, you can't hide under the table. You cannot be an ostrich, right, and pretend like nothing is happening, because it's coming fast, and so you need to deal with it. So it's not just about crossing the T's and dotting the I's. You have to be intentional about managing the diversity in the workplace. You have to. I mean, what am I even saying? Even the demographics, the generations, right? You see people who talk complaining every day. If you're not complaining about millennial, you're complaining about Gen Z. Remember that Gen X and even baby boomers are fast leaving the workplace, right? Very soon. It will just be maybe a sprinkling of them, and then there'll be the millennials, then there'll be the Gen Z, that they will now, sit down very well. And then Gen Alpha, they're coming up, raring to go. This is also another side of diversity we're talking about. How ready are you for that? Because you can't keep complaining about them. You have to be intentional about managing that diversity, managing it to harness and push the engine of your organization to get fantastic results, right? So they said, even if your workforce isn't becoming diverse, right? You say, I don't know about that one that you're saying. No, my workforce, there's nothing like that. What about your customer base? If you're putting out services, you're putting out products, your customer base is diverse. And as a customer, I want to patronize a business that I see myself represented in. I remember there was some years ago, there used to be a talk about, makeup for the Black woman, right? It felt like, the makeup you would see was more suited for the Caucasians, they were not getting the foundations right. They were not getting all the shades right, women, the women of color were just, angry. But now everything is changed. Fenty Beauty is there, Huda Beauty is there, and they are making millions and millions and millions of dollars. Why? Because the typical person of color can look and see a shade that, man, I can relate with. I'll put this shade on and it's my perfect shade. So your products and your services, are you refining them? Are you fine-tuning them to meet or match your consumer? Because as I said, I talked about different generations. The baby boomers, at some point, their interest may move to other things. Then you now see that there are certain people that are now the ones that are the consumers, the customers. How are you fine-tuning your products to meet them? And that's why some organizations go out of business, right? Because they are not meeting up with the changing trends and changing fads. When you go online, you see marketing, you see how marketing is fast changing, everything, because they want to be able to suit the customer. The current customer, the Gen Z, they have very short attention span. Like, if you're going to be giving them verbose, like, I don't have time for none of that. Give me short videos, give me shorts, in my industry, sometimes we have conversations that we're like, okay, what are the things that appeal to this class of people? What's the content we're putting out to appeal to these people? Because these people they form a particular percentage of our consumers. What are we going to do to catch their attention? So these are the conversations you need to be having, and that's diversity. I mean, that's diversity. So let's go into the different areas or different elements of diversity. It's where the book went on to talk about different kinds of different areas. Now it says when you're building teams, it's important to have variety of experience. So it talks about diversity and experience. So you want to have a mix, a good mix. You want to have those who they come with the wealth of experience. I remember I also made a post about that. I said, as the older generations are phasing out, who is documenting that knowledge base that they have? Because that knowledge base is very valuable, right? Yes, you're bringing in the newer people or the younger people because they have fresh eyes. They can see things from a different perspective, right? But you still need that mix. So you have when the younger people come, and the older people come together, there's reverse mentoring. So you as a younger person, because you're more in touch with the fads, the tech fads, so you're teaching the older people how to be aligned to digitization. Now, AI is the crazy thing, how you're using the AI tool. So the older people, yes, they have the experience and everything, but they probably don't know how to navigate their way around AI, right? So, the younger people will be there to reverse mentor them, to show them how to do that. But you need that mix. You can't have a team that is just experience heavy, so many experienced experts and all that. First of all, it's expensive. It's really expensive to have that. You know how much it costs to pay people of great experience. Then you have so you must have those younger people, because those ones will bring fresh eyes. There's freshness. It takes away stagnancy, right? You're able to innovate. So they can come in. Yes, there are ideas that have been synced into experience, but then they come in with their own fresh ideas. Say, why don't we do this thing in a more dynamic way? So that's the beauty of diversity of experience, right? The younger people bring enthusiasm. You've been there, you have 20 years of experience, and sometimes there's a burnout. You're just like, oh, I've been doing this thing, day in, day out for years. You need those younger people to give you that spunk, that ginger, because they come with their sprite, they're full of energy. So they come and they pump you up, right? So that's how, that diversity comes together as a symbiotic relationship. It's a great mix. Now, there's another element which the book brought about, which is diversity of tenure. And that diversity of tenure, okay, first of all, there was diversity of time. And all this is under diversity of experience. So under diversity of experience, diversity and experience, you have diversity of time. So what does diversity of time talk about? Time the person has spent in the career. So when you see people's profiles, the person has been in HR for 26 years. The person has seen all kinds of different kinds of things in HR, has dealt with all kinds of scenarios, has dealt with all kinds of real life cases, knows how to deal with organizational issues and blah, 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 blah. That is an asset. But then you also have, like we said, based on experience, you have the younger ones who have not spent so much time, who can see things from a fresh eye. But then there's also diversity of tenure. The people that have been in the organization, the long service award people, they've been there for 25 years, they've known it, or they know the culture, the intricacies of the organization. Those kind of people, you still need to hold on to them, because remember, I think, we've had conversations around workplace politics. Those people see the invisible lines. Some of them see those invisible lines that are in the organization, those invisible networks that are in the organization, those informal networks, those things that may not necessarily be out there, but because they've lived through, they've seen things, they've been in the organization, they bring that wealth there. Then there are the new people. They come in, the grad, they may have had years of experience, but in that particular company, they need to still calm down and understand how things work, right? So that's where those ones that have been there, they come together with these people and they work together. That's the diversity. They come together and make things work or make things better. Then there's diversity of industry. I may have been in FMCG, for a long time, and I'm saying, hey, I need to go to oil and gas, or I've been in oil and gas, I want to go to tech. right? So you have those, when someone from that industry is going into another industry, they're going in, there's a freshness that comes. I remember, so I had been in energy for a long while. I went engineering, oil and gas, energy, that whole sphere. Then I also dabbled into some of media, and then, some of hospitality. Then I now went into entertainment. So of course, those that have been in there, of course, I also have to listen to them because they've been in there, they understand how things work there. But then I'm also bringing in my fresh ideas from a different industry and saying, hey, yeah, we can, I mean, I'm not saying that I have to put a square peg in a round hole, but then I'm going to tweak my knowledge, tweak what I know, or tweak the experience I have over there and bring it here and make it work in this industry. So those are the different things. Those are the those are the different areas under diversity and experience. Diversity of time within the career, diversity of tenure within the company, and then diversity of industry. You see how those things can form an asset. So think about these things when you're even bringing people in, right? I know that there are some industries that are very, I don't want to say cult-like, but you will see it's a silent thing that people will say that if you don't have experience working in this industry, it's hard for you to break into that industry. But then maybe those industries, they need that freshness from a different industry, those fresh ideas, those fresh perspectives to make things, to reset or to rejig that that engine to make things, work faster, work better, for things to be more dynamic. Then you want to make sure that you have teams that allow difference in opinions. I've said this, if anybody on here has listened to me facilitate before, it's probably like sounding like a broken record. I'll talk about a team that I used to be. In fact, I think it started from that team, which is why I will always remember it. I remember having a boss, right, that our meetings were not just meetings, not meetings come and say, yes, sir, yes, sir. There were meetings that were think tank meetings. And what my boss loved about those meetings was that, or what he did in those meetings was that he encouraged differing opinions. So you can have differing opinions and you don't have conflict, right? You can have difference in opinions and it doesn't lead to hostile environment. You can disagree and say, hey, I don't, because you're bringing your own perspective. So that's what he would do. We would table workplace issues, and then everybody would give their views. And somebody will say, oh, I think we should do this. And someone, after we've talked, someone will just say, I don't think so. This is how I think we should do it. And then it becomes a debate, and not just a debate for debate's sake, where, fleshing out, the difference in opinions, looking at, okay, what will work, what will not work. And then we leave that room, going to work to actually apply those things. And so my boss, he would be quiet. I mean, there were times he would talk if he needed to, but at no time did he ever shush anybody and say, oh, no. He would listen, no matter how seemingly silly. Not even, I mean, no opinion was ever silly, but no matter how minute you thought your opinion was, he would listen because he would be, and I think that helped me, and it even gave me the blueprints to even, do things in teams that I have led or teams that I have worked with. I love to hear difference in opinions because I want to see, because, the way the mind works, sometimes that difference in opinion might be the thing that would, tighten your idea or polish your idea further. So the book is saying that you want to make sure that you have teams that allow that. At the beginning of this review, I talked about herd mentality. I would find it very boring if everybody's agreeing. Oh, yeah. So whatever you say, sir, whatever you say, ma, yeah, whatever you say. No, I want to be the devil's advocate. Critical thinking. Let me hear something from a different tangent. And like, I want to be able to be in conversations and someone says something, it's a curveball, and like, we never thought of it that way. But that's how some of the greatest products, some of the greatest services come about, from differing opinions. Of course, there's a thin line, like I said. It doesn't mean that I'm saying that every time, because you've heard that there should be a difference in opinion. Every time you want to what's the word? Fight back on, it has to be something you're doing with facts and it's coming from the right place. So, I mean, and I said it because in my review it says it shouldn't lead to conflict. So even if you're having different, you can have differing opinions without it leading to conflict. But it's more of enhancement of communication, empathy, and working together. It brings about good team bonding if all of you can, rack heads together. But then at the end of the day, you realize that you're working towards one objective. It encourages a well-balanced organization because, things are seen from different perspectives. Now, there are concerns around people say, oh, with what's the word? With a difference in opinions, I said some people have issues about conflicts, and I've said manage it well in such a way that it doesn't escalate to conflicts. And then there's also an issue, concerns around decision paralysis. Oh, if we have difference in opinions, then we're not ever going to make a decision. But no, it's actually, the writer says that, oh, it's actually more the opposite, that it's when there are not enough opinions that there's decision paralysis. But if I feel like where there's difference in opinions allows for richer conversations. And to be honest, I think you would reach your decisions faster because, there's enough material, there's enough meat to work with. Unlike when you have very little opinions and they're like, you're confused, you're stuck, you don't really know. And the difference in opinions, for me, they serve as checks and balances, because sometimes you might think you have it all tightened up, it's great, it's good to go, but that difference in opinion, makes you, like I said, it makes you stop and wonder, like, it makes you critically think, and you're like, oh, okay, I never looked at it from this, I never looked at it from this angle, even if you may not necessarily take everything, but it helps you think. It helps you think deeper. It helps you think further. And it's very healthy for the organization. Now, the book also, another element the book talked about was diversity in compensation. I know that's a very, sensitive topic, right? And the writers talked about that the connection here is fair pay. And it said fair pay is not the same thing as equal pay. So they're not saying that in reality, and I don't know, people might not be happy to hear this, but the book says in reality, may not necessarily all have equal pay, but then let the pay that is given to you be fair according to your experience and all that. So you would not want, a female or whatever, let's use the one that is commonly used, the female, doing the same job, same portfolio and everything, and a guy doing the same job. Of course, those are the things that you look at in terms of fairness and say, hey, so you have to do your audits and confirm that is this pay, is it fair across board? And it's not just that, there are several other things. I remember having been in this conversation. Let me digress a bit. I remember listening to watching a TikTok video yesterday. And I think this speaks to representation as well. So this lady, it really was about audacity. She was saying that, I don't know if anybody else has watched the video, but it resonated with me. When I watched it, I was like, hey, the lady said she used to work in Shell, and she was talking about international assignments. So now international assignments are the assignments, in the oil and gas industry, where you're sent to different countries as an expert. And those are plum or plush, assignments, because when you go, you're somewhere as an expert. You're on a totally different level. So she was saying that she noticed that it's only men that go on this thing. How come it's only men that are sent on these international assignments? So they had a town hall meeting, and in that town hall meeting, they happened to be, the top executives in the company. They were there. And so it was time for questions, and she raised her hand and stood up and asked her. She was like, why is it that it's only the men that go for international assignments? Why are women not going for? Oh, you watched it? Yes. Yes. That video blew my mind. So she was like, why are women not going for that, going for international assignments? So she said that after that meeting, the men came for her. Guess what the men said? And it's crazy, of course. Yes, I agree with her. And I love what she did, because it was audacious. And for me, it set the tone she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every other woman. So that's what we're talking about, representation. And so that's diversity. This is why diversity is so important. So she was like, so she said the men came for her, said, why will you go and be fighting for why do you want to go on international assignments? And what will happen to your husband? And when I heard that, I was like, what? Excuse me? And it reminded me of conversations I've been in, right, with managers, male managers, when, in previous places I've worked, right? And we're talking about pay, and we're talking about promotion, or we're talking about pay increase. And then some of the male managers will come and meet us and say, hey, you, why do you want a increase in salary? Are you not married? And I'm like, so what does being married have to do with this? So because I'm married, don't I like money? Wouldn't I like money? Why am I here? Why am I working? Or you think that because I'm a wife or because I'm a woman, I don't have needs? No, don't say that. So I was mortified. I know that these things happen, but I was just like, what? How is it that people are coming for her saying what will happen to her husband? Anyway, cut the long story short, she said after that meeting, first of all, her name was on the next list for international assignments. So of course, she got to go on international assignment with her family to Houston. This was years ago. And not just that, other women got the opportunity. So it wasn't just for her, it was for the women. And then she talks about opening up other opportunities. Yeah. So she went for that international post. And that, of course, I'm sure that was the start of things. And these are the things that, because some of us cower, we're afraid. Because she said, was she afraid to raise her hand? Of course, I know how town hall meetings can be. I know how some people say, I don't want to talk because I don't want trouble before they will come for me, or they will. But she said she was afraid. She did it, but she did it afraid. And look at what that got her. Because international assignment, she was on expert status. She was earning, she said, she was earning double what some people have been in the company for years, double of what they were earning. And if you know international assignments, that the pay is just a little part of the package. There's so much that goes into that. So the thing about it is fighting for fair representation, right? Fighting for representation of diverse groups, like the women. She was fighting for the women. Like, how is it that in a whole company, Shell Nigeria, it was unbelievable that no woman was sent on international assignment, and what exactly was the reasoning behind that? So these are the things that diversity brings. I remember that I think at some point I was having work conversations with a company, and I remember going to their about, and I saw their board. I didn't see one woman in the board, and I'm just like, there's nobody there that looks like me. Now look at this woman that was fighting for people. So how am I going to be comfortable enough to go into this kind of company where the representation at the top, they're just men? So how are the men going to be fighting? I mean, when we want to talk about things that concern women, who is going to be that voice at the top that will push for the women? Yeah, somebody might come and say, isn't it, you can go in there and you can start the fight. Yeah, I can, but it's going to be a Herculean task. It's going to be less Herculean if I'm going in there and I'm seeing some representation, right? I see somebody in there that looks like me, who is like me, I can relate to, so that when I am bringing the issues, the person can say, yeah, I get you. And the person has a voice, has my voice, and takes it, to the top, because there's some rooms you probably won't be able to reach. But then we need to think about those things in terms of like the diversity. How diverse are your teams? Because even when you're recruiting, when you're making yourself like, and you're putting out your EVP, how are you selling yourself to the people you want to hire? Because when they're coming, they're like, I don't see anybody that is like me. I don't see anybody that is like me or similar to me. So how am I going to be comfortable? If there are certain things that I need to talk and address, who is going to actually resonate with me? These are things we need to think about, right? We need to think about them. And yeah, so coming back to compensation, it says pay increases should not be based, they should be performance-based. If they're performance-based, it will take away some of the, what's the word, subjectivity or bias or favoritism. I know some people will roll their eyes here in this, because even with the performance-based, you still see some discrepancies, but it's a step in the right direction. By the time we address these things through that way, then it's not, you now don't see that it's a certain category of people, certain people that are just getting the pay increase. It's like a club of people, and then anybody outside that club, no, they don't get that raise. So these are the things, these are the areas where we need to think about diversity, how diversity can enhance or, serve as, as an advantage, in the organization, for the betterment of the organization and for the people. Now it says it's not just enough to bring Okay, before we go into that, it talked about, okay, we talked about diversity and opinion. It also talks about diversity and skill. And in this case, it wasn't concentrating on hard skills, it was concentrating on soft skills. So you also want to have your team have diverse skills, right? Soft skills. You can say, oh, you want this person, you want people, of course, ideally, you want everybody to have the same kind of soft skills, right? But you probably may not get it all in one person. But okay, this person is strong in critical thinking. This person is strong in negotiation. This person is strong in this. You have a team that has, the mix of those skills, and you use them and harness them accordingly. So it's not just concentrating on competency, technical competencies, but also the soft skills. What diverse soft skills do you have in your team? So when you're hiring, when you're looking to bring in people, these are also things that you need to look at. It says it's not just enough to bring different people together as a part of the team. It said, okay, people said we should do diversity. We're bringing the people, we're bringing diverse people. No, don't just bring them in, but you also have to make them feel included. You have to make them feel like they are part of the team. You're not just ticking off a box. Well, diversity. I remember I don't know. No, it's not in. I know that it's not part of NC. I think it is a bit of NCDMB, that's Nigerian Content Bill, where it says, oh, for Nigeria, there's certain things in oil and gas, there's certain things you need to do to meet the Nigerian content percentages. But I know that like in South Africa, there's a triple B thingy that's kind of like similar to Nigerian content, where it states, it's in detail. It will tell you that, oh, you must have this percentage of females. There must be your diversity percentage must be a particular level. If you don't meet that diversity percentage, you get penalized. Yeah. So it's not just about meeting that percentage, but when those people are in your team or in your organization, how do you make them feel like they're part of the organization? They need to feel like they need to also know that they are making a valuable impact, that they're not just there to tick off the boxes, right? So it's not just about bringing them in, but empowering them to make decisions or to make impact. Like I said, sometimes just to make people happy, you will have a board or you have an executive team. You just plant one woman somewhere and just make her, maybe they'll give her one easy role. I'm just saying subjectively, they'll just give her one role and then they'll just say, we have women representation in this board. Meanwhile, the woman cannot say anything, she cannot do anything. The men are still carrying the show, right? So are you empowering the people that you bring in, or the team, the diverse mix you're having, or you're just saying, you know what, so they don't disturb me, so that somebody will not say we're not diverse. Okay, you be there, but you're just going to be there as a figurehead. You're not going to do anything. No. According to a saying by someone who's a DEI expert called Verna Myers, she said diversity is being invited to the party, inclusion is being asked to dance. And that being asked to dance is empowering that person. You brought the person in, but are you empowering the person to make an impact? So, of course, if we don't manage diversity well, employee relations issues will come about. And how do we manage this? We manage this by developing anti-discrimination policies. So we have to be ready with our policies, right? Because remember at the beginning, it said diversity will bring challenges. So you have to manage those challenges, because as much as it brings challenges, it also brings opportunities. So we're not going to throw away the baby with the bathwater, right? You have to take on the issues and handle them, manage them well, right? So you have to develop those policies, but don't just develop them. Don't just develop the policies, but enforce them fairly and consistently, so that people will know that, okay, fine, you have their back, right? You brought them in, you're empowering them, and you're also with them, you're supporting them. And then you also need to promptly look into and investigate employee issues that come about or arise from these things. And then you should not allow issues fester, especially diversity issues. Don't allow them fester and say, we'll come back. You have all the committees, set up committees and have meetings. You make that person feel like, okay, I'm not valued here. I'm just here to tick off a box, and that's that. Beyond that, yeah, they don't really have any value, or don't see me as someone of value. It went on to talk about L&D, that you should also look into, should be handled as care, because with care, because it can be seen as a potential area for bias. And it made me chuckle, because I remember somewhere where people would, used to think that, oh, it was the manager's favorite people that would go for trainings. So if he didn't like your face, or if you didn't do a particular thing he wanted you to do, they will not pencil you down for training. So you have to also be careful about that, which is why, these things have to be based on performance. They have to be performance driven. It's not, there have to be certain structures in place. You can't just wake up and say, or you have a manager say, I want to send this person for training. What is the basis for, there has to be structure behind it. There has to be metric. So that there's a measure, there's fairness. People see that there's fairness across board, so that people do not feel marginalized or feel like they're kept to one side because somebody has a bias, right? And I see this, even in like when you talk about organizations abroad, you see like maybe sometimes, maybe African Americans will say, oh, they feel a certain way because, they feel like, oh, the other people, the Caucasians, they tend to favor their own people, they jump over them and promote their own people and all that. So coming down here, even you see things like that. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is transparent so that you don't have issues of bias in the organization. Now, diversity is a tool that can be used for the enhancement of the organization, right? Because it gives access to a wide range of perspectives. That's why it's an asset. It will give you a wide range, and access to a wide range of perspective, insights, knowledge, practices you typically wouldn't have, which is why, let's go back to, where we talked about diversity of experience. If you have all those different, perspectives, different opinions, on a normal day, you probably wouldn't have it if you had everybody, towing along the same line. If you had a team that is just full of men, and all the men are all, they are all baby boomers, or they are all Gen X, or they are all millennials. You need that, that person that will come, the Gen Z that will come and say, yo, this is how, this is how my own people, this is how, you may feel like, what's this? But listen and hear, because you probably wouldn't have that access if you didn't open up your windows or open up your doors to those different people, or those diverse perspectives, or those diverse insights or opinions. So it says, before turning diversity into an asset for your organization, determine what types of diversity you want to highlight. So you've heard me talk about the different elements. Does not mean that, okay, now you just open up the door and just bring in everything. No, you might want to, there are certain areas you might want to concentrate on. Maybe for you, it's, you want to look at diversity of opinion. Maybe you want to even start with the easiest one. Okay, let's even, empower teams, or make the environment conducive for there to be diversity of opinions. You start from there, and then you see how that works before you now start to introduce other things. Maybe you diversify teams in terms of experience, or in terms of skill. You take things, you pace things. So you decide which ones do you want to highlight and which ones need improvement, because you might be doing okay in some area, one particular area, you might not. So you have to do your audits and check which ones do you want to concentrate on and which ones do you want to improve. And, if the ones that are okay, fine. If you want to improve on them, if you want to make them better, fantastic. Then, do your managers have the capacity to effectively create an inclusive work environment? Because this is very important. There was a book we reviewed this year, and it said, you can do everything you want to do. If your managers don't create that enabling environment, you're just wasting your time. Because the managers are the levers, the driving forces. They're the ones that push these things. So you now say, okay, I've come more as HR. Let's have, we're trying to encourage diversity of opinion. If you have managers that shut those things down, that shut those opinions down, even if you have a diverse team, people won't talk. Because if I talk, nobody's going to take what I say. Or if I talk, they shush me, so I might as well. So how are you going to empower these managers, or, educate, teach them or show them and direct them how to? So the question is, so if you have managers that don't have that capacity, how can they be motivated? How can they be empowered to think about it? A lot of times it's not a do as I say, don't do as I do. It starts from, it can start from even you, because people are looking at you. HR, you come and you say this thing, but you too, when we tell you something, you shut us down. So you have to, it's whether you have to take them through what do you call it? I'm trying to remember what this is, but like trainings where you have to show them, because some people actually just have blind spots. A lot of managers, or quite a number of managers, are just thrown headlong into their roles. They have no idea. Fine, they are great at what they do technically, but they don't know how to handle the other parts. It's for them, it's like, So they need that guidance maybe on how to do those things. And I say it because it has worked. I've had managers where I sit with them and I say, hey, we do audits, and I say, this is what the people have ideas, but they're not going to say anything because they don't see any action. And so if we're going to have them trust you enough to say things, we need to see the level of impact. So what I would do, we would track things. So if you say you're going to do something, you're going to listen to the people and they say what they need to say, they need to see that there's action being taken. Even if you can't get a headway with the thing, at least show them that you have tried. So we will do a quarterly tracking. We'll say, okay, fine. At the beginning of the year or at some point of the year, the people said this is where they have issues, or they've spoken their minds, they've talked about what they want to see improvements in, or this is what, okay, maybe we take 2 things and we address those 2 things. We say, okay, we're going to address these 2 things and we're going to work on it. And we're going to show you how the manager, we've made some effort to show them, okay, fine, we did this. Okay, maybe in this area there was a roadblock, but we had success in this. So you should, and I've seen where, at least when you can show some level of progress, people are like, okay, maybe I should actually talk because, what I say I'm being heard. I'm being heard and I'm being listened to. So it's not just about, just talking for, I'm actually seeing what I'm saying being worked upon, to the best of their ability. So how do you, as HR, empower the managers or motivate them to do this? Because I said, like I said, from this, you will see people opening up more. And even the manager was happy. We would have conversations, we would come in and have meetings, and whatever one-on-ones he had, he saw people opening up more. And it would, not just one manager, more than one manager, they'll be happy. They'll be like, wow, okay, this is actually working. Yeah. And they are human, because sometimes you give them different opinion and the person is like, he's not used to that. It's like, what's all this? But then he now, comes back to himself and says, okay, you know what? I have to be able to take feedback. Of course, it's work in progress. It's not going to happen overnight, but how do you motivate? How do you empower them to create that enabling environment for an inclusive workplace? Now, another question, does your compensation model remove or minimize discrimination issues? Now, that's for you to check, do your audits and confirm. I know that sometimes some of these things have layers and layers and layers, but what can you do to remove distrust in these areas? Make people feel like, okay, because I'm not a certain way, so I cannot get access to this fair pay. So you have to ask the difficult questions and then do what you can to do to make people feel included, make them feel like they're adding value to the organization. So, and I've said it, and this is just to conclude, as much as it may not be an easy feat. Remember, I talked about how I have worked hand in hand with managers to have people trust them more. It was not an overnight thing. Of course, there were roadblocks, right? But transparency helped, right? Communication is so important. We communicate with people along the way, give them updates, we're reviewing, we're tracking, we'll tweak here and there and say, okay, fine, let's go back to the drawing board and all that. It's not an easy feat to manage diversity. However, it does pay off eventually. So, for me, that's really the end of this review. It was, like I said, it was such an easy book. I hope that we have taken, even if it's one line of learning from this. I don't know if anyone wants to talk about how they have seen diversity impact their organization positively. Remember the example I gave about the lady that was working in Shell. Look at how, as a woman, she came up and said something that, trust me, I doubt that a man would have, probably a man might have, but a man may not feel it. So a man might not have been able to fight that fight, take the fight up. It took a woman who knew where the shoe was pinching her. She got up and spoke for the rest of the women, and look at what she did. So you see how diversity is so important, because it's the person, a lot of times that fight, when I say fight, not that's whatever mandate or whatever it is that you're taking, or whatever you want to see happen, or whatever you want to see change, sometimes comes from someone who is like you or who is similar to you. And I know, I've heard stories about, you're saying all this, but there are some women, when they are in leadership, they will block your way. Yes, we have those. But as much as you have those kind of people, you have those ones too that are willing, like this woman that were in Shell that took up the fight and said, you know what, I'm going to carry this for everyone. I'm going to put myself, even if it's going to be on the chopping block, no problem, but I'm doing it afraid, but I will make sure that the doors are opened up to other people. And I'm sure who knows what that would have done, because for them to have even continued, right, kept on doing it, because there's nothing as beautiful as, you're sending a certain set of people and then you now open it up and now bring diverse. Because when you bring a woman, she will come with her own perspective. Yes, she's technically competent, but she's coming with some soft skills, some other soft skills, some things that may not necessarily be in that her male counterpart. So of course, it makes the work more creative, more innovative, right? So, these are the things, or these are the advantages that diversity brings to an organization. Yes, Kudirat, I talked about unconscious bias earlier on. It's something that, like I said, 99% of us, probably I'm even being generous, 99.5% of us, if not 100% of us have. But yeah, that's it from me. I don't know if anyone, you want to talk about how diversity has impacted your organization positively, has been an asset to your organization. I mean, if it has impacted it negatively, I'm happy to hear too, because again, we're all for differing opinions. But hey, yeah, we can just open the floor for one or two comments before we round up. Thank you. Anyone want to say anything? Any comments? Yeah, so it's doctor's comments. Meanwhile, I've read Kudirat's comments, but yeah, doctor's comments. Meanwhile, when the women miss international assignments and then not qualify for, because those international assignments, they're like, if like how, so like me, when I want to climb the stairs, yes, sometimes I'm still a child at heart. I don't climb steps one at a time. I climb two, three two, depending on how wide they are. For an international assignment, it accelerates your career. You're climbing 3 steps higher because, see, you're working it's still the same diversity. You're leaving this team that you're used to. You're going to work in a different team with different competencies, different kinds of people. It expands your mind. So of course, when you come back, your mind is like rubber band. When it's stretched, it cannot come back. Of course, when you come back, you're not coming back to the same level. You're gonna go up. So sometimes you see people going up to high levels when they come back from international assignments, if they're not even sent to other international assignments. Okay, so thank you, Anita. Yes, visibility. Diversity opens the doors for visibility. Yeah, because it enhances, it just enhances, it gives room for expansion, because even as you're amongst people that have diverse perspectives and opinions, do you know what that does to your mind? It expands your mind. It's almost like you're traveling, but you're not actually physically traveling, but you're exposed to different opinions and you're learning. You know how it is when, I don't know if any of you ever sit down with children to listen to what they say. Just sit down and just be listening to children. Like, you just bring a topic and just ask them, what do they think? You might think that they are mumbling. Sometimes me, when I even, like, if I want to write something, if I want to do a post, sometimes it's a conversation I've had with a child. It may be my child, my daughter, my daughters or something. They just say something like, That's the beauty of diversity. You're listening to different perspectives. And you're like, because you can't know it all. The truth of the matter is you can't know it all, and you only see from a particular lens, a particular view. So you need those differing views. Before I came in for the book club, I was telling Doctor, I had a work meeting, and we're talking about something, and people were saying different things, and I was like, wow, I never thought of it that way. I didn't think of it that way. So that's why it's good to have diversity, because it expands your mind, it widens the horizon of your thinking. Let me not talk too much, please. So let's hear, does anybody have anything to contribute? Anyone? Or let me hand over to Doctor to round up before we go, call it a night. But yeah, it was a great book. I encourage, if you're in here and you haven't read the book, please go and read it. It's just 29 pages. Before you know it, you're done and dust. It's a great book. And as not just reading the book, okay, doctor, not just reading the book, but practice. Like I said, you don't have to take every single thing at a time. Anita said, how do you break a system of millennials and the oldies? Let them not see you. Because there are some people that call millennials oldies. Which ones are oldies? But I get you, Gen. So the baby boomers, the Gen X, especially when they're stuck up in their weights. It's so like I said, it's not a day thing. You're going to it's over time. It's over time you will, it's a regular, it's a I don't want to say it's a daily thing, but it's an unconditioning of your mind. And you have to make them see, you have to make them see reason, which is why it's good that these people, maybe when you do have teams, I don't know how much power you have, or even telling managers that when they put teams together, let them mix the teams up. Let them have the older, well, don't say the older folk, the other different, a mix of the different generations, have them in a team. And see them work together. Let them open up their minds. Let them be open to ideas and have them work together. And then they will now see how these people can, as much as you might get irritated by some idiosyncrasies, right? You also want to see the good that comes out of that. I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine. She's different generations in the team. She's in a team, or she's in team. She said, the kind of things that Gen Z will say, yo, what's up? What's the 911? What's this? They will be talking to the managers. Of course, you will have to rein them in. You have to show them there are certain things you will not say in the workplace. But some of those people turn out to be great assets. If you really look beyond all that thing, you're like, you know what? Let me hear what you're saying. They come up with great ideas. But yeah, have a mix in teams, even if it's not like you can even use, you can do like practice. Sorry, guys, it's my dispenser. You can have practice, what's the word now? Like practice teams, you can have them do something like maybe a pilot thing and just have them and see how they work together and let them just do a test run and see how things work, how they see. Then they will now begin to see those people from the eyes of, okay, this is the value that this person brings. Forget all these other things that they do. This is the value they bring. Thank you, Stella. Thank you, Adenike. Okay, so I mean, so that we don't stretch it too much, I told Doctor at the beginning that this is going to be a very short review because it was a very short book, short but interesting book full of gems. So yeah, we're going to call it a night because I know that everybody is winding down, for Christmas. I looked at my dates the other day and said, wait, Christmas is in 3 days. So I know that people are, they just want to wind down. So yes, we're going to call it a day, and our next review will actually be a recap. I'm excited about that. So please, if you're in here, and for those that are going to listen later, please get your, what book impacted you the most 2025. I know there were particular books that brought up a lot of conversation in the group, right? But then outside of those books, there may have been a book that didn't really bring up conversation, but it impacted you. Let's hear from you. I'm not saying that you should come and do a full review, but even if it's to drop 1 or 2 lines and say, hey, this is what I took out of this book, and this is what has led me through the year, or I did this, or I applied this, and this is so that's how we're going to, conclude the year, and then we'll also let you know what we have in store for 2026. But other than that, thank you everyone for joining. I don't take your attendance for granted. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating as well. Thank you so much. Doctor, thank you so much again for the platform to do this. Like I said at the beginning, for those that were not here, this is a great platform for you to harness your speaking skills, because you just never know where this speaking skill will carry you. Me, I know the opportunities that it brought to me this year. And I know opportunities that it gives to people. You see people standing, on stages, and you don't know where they started from. This is a great place to start from to build your speaking skills, or to harness or to polish up on the one you already have. Thank you, Kudira. Thank you so much. So thank you, guys. Please just take advantage of this opportunity because next year I would like to see so many other people take up the mantle and speak. I mean, we've had some people that spoke this year, and I was like, well, where are you? Where were all these gems hiding? I don't, please, the idea is that I want to be like that woman, right? And I'm always I want to be the woman that opened the door. And when I say woman, I'm not just saying open the door for only women, of course, for everyone, but of course, my bias will be for women. Sorry. I'm not sorry, not sorry. My bias, and it's not unconscious. It's not unconscious, it's conscious bias for women. So of course I will open up the door. But I want to be the one that will open the door and have everybody, others come in and, take the spotlight. So please, that's how we want 2026 to be. Let it be that I come in and just maybe round up, but let other people, let's hear your beautiful voices, hear your beautiful perspectives, hear diversity. We want diversity. Yes, Kudirat, Vision 2026. Vision 2026 is diversity. So with that, I would like to call it a night and say thank you to everyone. I want us to have a wonderful night and have a wonderful rest of the week. Merry Christmas in advance. And yeah, we will see you at the end of the month for the recap. Thank you so much. Good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Madam Florence. Thank you, Nyeka. Thank you, Blessing. Thank you, everyone. Doctor signing out.